So, as you could tell, I just got through running across the cornfields with my dogs to come over here on a Saturday and say hi to everybody. So I'll get better at this. We'll get higher quality in the editing room because I do all my own production too. Anyway, again, love you guys. Go say hi to somebody. Just wave at somebody. Start there. Just wave at some people. Younger people, older people. I did that backwards, didn't I? Younger people, older people. Just go out and say hi. Let's start. There was a hashtag that Barbie wants to get started. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to look through some of the old films. We need to be pulling together and discussing these items, and not be afraid to have a dinner. What do they call it? Table dinner, or around the dinner table. Politics is a device to keep this country moving forward. I know that all the people in the middle class want this country to keep moving forward. I also know that the politicians we have currently in place on both sides of the aisle, some way more than others, but we have a situation now where the politicians don't want us to necessarily move forward. They want, and our education and our information to be lower and lower so that they can control and control more. They have very perfect lives, really. And these are the things we don't understand. You know, we need to really be able to have the courage and have the patience to be looking at our politicians more directly, with more information. As I've said before, we have a utopia coming, and if we don't have control over our politicians, as that utopia comes, then we won't have that utopia. We will be moved into whatever needs that the country has, without the rewards. This middle class of America has been stronger and done more than my own. I know I'm biased, but than any other. As a matter of fact, all the middle classes, around the world, is what the economy is built on, and we have no say at how that money is spent. I really love that tune, folks. That's got such a great beat to it. You know what? We are coming up on, I just looked, we are coming up on our 500th show since September 17th. So thank you all for being here. I see a couple of people are kind of starting to sprinkle in a little bit here. But today on Insights and Straight Talk, I'm your guest, I'm your host, Rodd Duff, the ever-present producer Barbie here. We'll talk more about her later. But today we're stepping directly into a reality that millions of people in America's great middle class are living every single day. Work keeps getting faster. Of course, expectations keep rising. Technology, as we talk about regularly on this show, technology just keeps changing, and AI is making that even more so. And yet somehow the pressure always lands on the same people. The ones who show up early, right? Of course, stay late. The ones who carry all the weight, solve the problems, and still wonder why growth feels more like survival than success. The question is not whether you are working hard, never has been. The question is whether hard work still works. Careers no longer move in straight lines. You know that, right? Loyalty is not always rewarded. Burnout has been normalized, unfortunately. And leadership has become a lonely place where clarity just feels just out of reach. The great middle class is not short on effort, intelligence, or ambition. It is short. It's short on systems that make growth sustainable instead of exhausting. That's why today's conversation matters. Today's conversation matters because The gap between effort and advancement keeps widening. How can we catch up? People are doing more, not less. So what's the issue? We're wearing more hats, absorbing more pressure, and too many feel unseen, underleveraged, and stuck. Not because they lack talent, no way, but because the rules of leadership have changed. And you know what? Nobody ever handed them the new playbook. Our guest today understands this from the inside out. Cortney Watson did not learn leadership from theory. She lived it. She spent over 20 years leading teams in Washington, D.C. She served as chief operating officer of a consulting firm that scaled from $10 million to $40 million and beyond. And that kind of growth, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by fixing bottlenecks, building leaders, keep on to that one, strengthening culture, and turning chaos into clarity. But here's the part that really matters most. Cortney did not just scale revenue, she scaled people. And along the way, she learned a lesson most leaders discover the really hard way. Growth shouldn't feel like survival. Leadership is not constant firefighting. And success that costs your health, your relationships, or your sense of purpose is not success at all. That realization shaped her work. So today, Cortney is an executive coach helping founders, managers, and rising professionals build organizations that actually run themselves, profitable, purposeful, sustainable, right? And human. She works with leaders who are just tired of carrying everything alone. People who they don't need motivation, they need clarity. And clarity is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are talking about how to lead through change without losing your team. Why some employees stay when things get hard, while others quietly walk away. We're digging into founders' bottlenecks, that uncomfortable moment when you realize you might be the ceiling in your own freaking business. And fortunately, how to break through it without burning out. We are confronting a hard truth about careers, certainly the rest of 2025, the little bit we have left into 2026, and most definitely beyond. Hard work alone is no longer enough. Visibility matters. Communication matters. Systems matter. We're talking about feedback that actually works, okay? Not the kind people avoid, the kind that builds trust, accountability, and momentum. We're breaking down what high performance teams actually do differently, how they communicate, how they communicate, not this way, how they make decisions, how they hold each other accountable without fear, okay? And we are not avoiding the burnout conversation, not at all. Boundaries are not weakness, they're leadership. Ambition without sustainability is not drive, it's damage. We'll also hear Cortney's real journey rising to the C-suite level. That's no safe place. That's no safe zone. That's a bunch of very intelligent people with big drive, and each journey is different. Imagine the pressure, the expectations, or the lessons learned leading at that level without losing yourself. That's a hard lesson to learn. And finally, we get practical, understanding what drives the people around you. Stop guessing, start leading. This episode matters because America's great middle class is full of people doing everything right and still feeling stuck, working harder than ever, carrying more responsibility than ever, and wondering how to get ahead instead of just hanging on. This is not just advice, folks. It's a roadmap. And this conversation is shaped by you. Bring your real questions to us. why promotions keep passing you by, how to manage a toxic boss. What does good leadership actually look like now? How to manage burnout when the workload never stops growing. Drop your question in the chat. Come on. This is Insights and Straight Talk with Rodd Duff and producer Barbie. You're not just watching a show. You're joining a national conversation to rebuild America's great middle class. Cortney, let's get into it.
Hi, Rodd. Thanks for that introduction.
I
don't think there's anything left for me to say. You covered it all.
I just wanted to round out the rough edges. Just wanted to round out those rough edges and focus in on there's so much to your journey, and obviously you've had a successful road to today. And like we always love to talk. Oh, by the way, there's 250 people on already. So
hi everyone.
Yeah, say hi to all your new fans.
I told Rodd I have very big hair, so my virtual backgrounds never quite work. But
she's got it going on there. So here we're gonna move up a little bit closer here, make you feel even more uncomfortable, just because I like screwing around.
Oh, there you go.
So at the end of the day, we've got 200. Well, now there's 258 people on. But this is obviously a conversation. This country, and most free nations are built from entrepreneurship. That's where stuff comes from. That's where new ideas come from. That's where growth in an economy more or less comes from, right? And this is your journey, and this journey is where we came together here today. And I'm not going to get too 60s wild on you here, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people here that obviously can learn and gain a lot from your journey, as well as being in that C-suite. I know that's not a game for velvet and champagne glasses all the time. It can get a little bit elbowy in expectations. Everything rises. So what journey were you on? Some people go back to birth, but not necessarily you have to do that. But what journey brought you to here? That's the first question. Second question, being a little high this early, do you have a hard stop? We're usually an hour-ish. I forgot to ask you that.
No, I'm good. Yep. No.
Okay. So we'll probably go at least an hour and a half, just judging from experience. You good? Okay. Oh my God, we've already got a half a dozen questions. See, I told you it's been happening quicker. So please tell us about your journey. I'm going to pop off like I do, and I'm going to get and see what some of these folks are wanting to hear from you about. Oh, it looks like it's male and female, pretty evenly distributed here.
Oh, good. So I grew up in a small town in Michigan, and on the west side of Michigan called Big Rapids. I think it was like 15,000 people. But so is it?
Wait. Where I know Michigan. We're on the west side of Michigan, by Grand Rapids.
Just north of Grand Rapids. It's actually I don't know if you know the School Ferris State University. It's they actually were the Division II football champions several years in a row.
Yes, actually, I did know that. Yeah, my son went to go check out a couple of those colleges.
Oh yeah.
And that river running through there, it's a beautiful
Muskegon River. Yeah, it's a beautiful area, and it was a great place to grow up. Yep.
Go on with your story. I just moved here from Chicago, so
okay,
almost neighbor.
Okay, so you know the Midwest. So I grew up. My dad was actually a small business owner. He was a Wendy's franchisee, which is what brought us to the west side of the state. He had a kind of interesting story. Actually, he was a lawyer when I was first born and hated it, as lawyers often do. And he just gave it all up and started his own business and struggled for a while. And, struggled out throughout his career in various things, but ended up having a very successful business. So I watched him run a business, and I decided I was never going to be a business owner. I was never going to be a business leader. Of course, that's not what happened, but I saw him.
I think you veered a little bit there.
Yeah, already talking about my childhood baggage, or yeah. But
no. I mean, you veered saying after seeing all your dad went through, and building a franchise like that is not an easy task.
No.
Building all of that, and then you said, I'm never gonna
do
my own
that.
business.
Oh, right. Yeah. So
Well, something happened along the way.
yeah. Yep. Something
Go
happened.
ahead. Go ahead.
So, so I came out to DC, and I think, if the advice I'd have for young people and kind of what got me to the C-suite is I was willing to do a lot of different types of things. I didn't have this is, I'm sure like a lot of 20 somethings, I had all kinds of ideas at different points in my career on what I was going to do, but I was always willing to pivot and try something new. And I think having a variety of different experiences and always being open to learning new tasks and roles ended up, giving me the kind of background I needed to rise up in leadership. So
what were some of, let me ask you this. So you took on a number of different roles, which
yeah,
isn't always easy because each new role it's got its own ops, its own operations, right?
yeah,
And their own goal. So when you're doing that, obviously you're reaching out into not your wheelhouse, a thinner area, but then building that up. So then that expanded your capability as a leader because you were experienced in different roles, or the people that came in those roles. And what were some of the more highlighted ones that kind of, okay, that looking back, that one really kind of developed well for me. I'm staying on the journey here, but I'm digging a little deeper.
yeah,
I really
no,
like
please
this.
do.
Is interesting.
So I think, in my last company that I ended up being in the C-suite for, I took on a lot of roles that a lot of the people in the company didn't want to take on. So I needed to build out
there's a good message right there. There's a good message built right there. Go ahead. Sorry.
So we needed to build out like basically a huge group of subcontractors or consultants for the company. And it was gritty. I mean, it took a lot of work. It took interviewing, it took training, a lot of administrative stuff. I had to build out some technology platforms, things like that.
Wow.
And most people at the company did not want to do that, right? But, and I wouldn't say I got like some big raise or some great title because of it, but I took it on because they asked me to, and I appreciated that they believed in me. And I saw it as a chance to learn something new and experience something new. And really, when I look back on it, I was kind of building a small business for the company, and it was a good way to show that I could do it and that I was successful. And as you said, the role led for me working with lots of different types of people in the company. So instead of just working in a certain, division or department or practice, however you call it, I was being exposed to lots of different types of people. And so people got a flavor for me and the work I do and the results I delivered. And I think that kind of slowly, made me rise up, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, rise up and then being adaptable, being curious. Obviously, you're a curious person.
Yeah.
Right?
I am. I love to learn. And so I liked learning different things. And now I'm decided to change my job again. Right. And I like to learn. But
you're like, okay, I've got a lot of knowledge on this here. Let me just do something different now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's several things. One is like being willing to learn and trying different things and not always seeing your career as a ladder. I mean, sometimes, you have to move laterally, you have to try new things. You're not always going to see a raise or a promotion right away, which I know a lot of the young people want to see right away. But you eventually, I do think you can climb the ladder. So they say the more you learn and the more experiences you have, because you're just that much more knowledgeable and have that many more skills to offer wherever you're at.
Well, I think that really comes into play today because the workplace is, I know I'm stealing some of these people's questions here, but there's just a ton of them already. I can't believe it.
I appreciate that.
But with the workplace change, you have to be willing to be more curious and find, kind of almost follow ahead, be a little bit more intelligent about your workplace. If you're working for another company, let's stay here for a minute. If you're doing that, then you've got to be almost seeing where they're going because AI is going to affect every job. It's not going to eliminate every job.
Yeah.
And it's going to create new jobs. My son and I, we do. I was telling you about my granddaughter and I. My son also does this for a living. He does a multi-level revenue income. He does multiple income streams. B Money is what the show is called.
Yeah.
Cheap plug there. But we talk about how that there's going to be new jobs. So in other words, you're going to need AI to script code, right, to make more AI and do this. That's going to be a big thing coming up, more and more and more. But what you do still need is you need like a manager of say 5 8 bots to correct and to manage all that. So being curious is never more important than it is today, is it?
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. And I think on the technology side, you just have to embrace it, right? I see, especially, people 10 years older than me, it's kind of an amazing divide. I'm in my 40s. I feel like people in their 50s.
Oh,
I'm not stereotyping, but there is this tendency to want to push it down, right? Because you have a lot of people who are at that point in their career, have people who work for them or report to them, and they just say, well, why don't you learn that, or why don't you do that? But I do think you're going to miss out on opportunities if you aren't embracing the technology. You might never be as good as the younger people with the technology, but you can't shy away from it, because it is so important, even if you're an owner, to understand how it works and why it's something you might need to incorporate into your business.
Well, because you have the vision. Say you're the owner, or you're a managing partner, or you're in that management role where you're making bigger decisions for the company, whatever that role is. I've learned a great example here, what you just said. At least you got to know and understand what it does, because if you're operating at that level, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're as much of a visionary for the journey, for the role of the company.
Absolutely.
As the middle class, the working class, whatever, the working people of that company are the backbone, but that backbone needs to know where to go. And some of the best decision-making processes aren't necessarily done through the backbone. But if I learn this AI tool, at least I know enough about it to find somebody smarter than me about it. 20-year-olds are born with phones in their hand.
Absolutely.
My 2-year-old stepdaughter, her mom, we were at her birthday party a year ago or so, and we were talking across the table, and we were talking about this because my son taught me about AI, and his mom, she doesn't want to hear anything about it. She just wants to stick her head in the sand, and that you're not going to thrive in that. That's a fear. It's a natural and a real fear, but it's going to bury you, right?
I agree. You've got to embrace it. I have an 8 and 10-year-old son, and they're already way better than I am with technology. It's amazing.
I don't doubt that at all. By the way, cute little Christmas tree picture there I picked up on. We threw a quick conversation back and forth there, and it was a great lesson. Check out her LinkedIn, folks. It's by the way, before we end, which isn't now, we haven't even got to any of the questions. My God, it's 25 minutes have gone by already, and it feels like 2 minutes. But put in your contact information. You know how it goes. You've done podcasts, sometimes a year later, sometimes a minute later after the show.
Okay.
Somebody wishes they knew what Cortney thought about this. So.
Absolutely.
So sometime between now and that, put it in your private chat.
I will do that.
All right. So where did I cut you off on your journey? As I said, how important it was for you to go on this journey. It's just so interesting.
Yeah. So I think learning and trying new things and being open to some adaptability in your career, right? You change things. There are lots of different steps in my career that I thought I wanted to do one thing, and then I started doing that, and I liked it for a while, and then I switched. And I think being adaptable to what that looks like, even if it means a lateral move or, taking a job that you think is beneath you, I think that's important for learning, especially when you're young. I think being easy to work with and likable is huge. I don't think people, I think sometimes that gets underestimated, but, people will naturally choose you. Likability is big, especially as you get more senior. The emotional intelligence component, when the social IQ, I would say, you would say, becomes a lot more important as you become higher up in an organization, right?
Do you think most people realize that? Do you think most people that comes across their mind?
I think they're thinking about like, what, am I producing what they tell me to do? Do I understand the product, or, whatever industry you're in? I think they don't think about, some people do, but there are definitely people who underestimate just being likable, like asking people how their weekend was, knowing the name of their kids. I mean, that as a manager and a leader, that goes such a long way to good employee retention and performance.
Now you're talking about a place where people want to stick around, even though, like I said in that opening monologue, sometimes if it gets a little hard, people want to stick around because of you, because of that part of you, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. And I think you just have to have grit. I mean, I do think, I know we talked about, someone wrote, why does hard work stop being enough in career growth? And there is that, but I do think hard work is very important to being successful in a career.
Yeah. So one thing I didn't bring up in the last thing I just asked was, so what you're saying, you're not even at the prime of your life yet. You're really they say in your 50s and 60s is kind of where your best income earning comes from. But you're saying that even in your 20s and 30s, which this generation is the other side of the AI is changing, but then the workforce is also dramatically changing.
Yeah, it's different.
Everybody stuck in the middle is really deeply challenged. But you're also saying that as you're doing that, even if you think the job may be beneath you, but somebody really needs you at that spot, you should be looking more. The younger generations now should be looking more towards building their resume. They're
building their skill set.
They don't do it enough.
I think building their skill set, trying a variety of experiences. I think once you get to your 30s and 40s, you can talk about all kinds of things you've done and achieved. And, and I think when you're in your 20s, and I did it too, so I'm not faulting them. You're really thinking about, like, how am I going to get that next promotion? How am I going to get that, that more money? But I think that all does come with time. And people don't like to hear, like, put your time in, especially when you're in your 20s, and especially this generation. And I'm not necessarily saying that, but there is some truth to that, right? Like, you have to kind of wait for the right opportunities and have a variety of experiences and prove that you can work really hard to do something. And I don't mean like work 60 hours a week, but I mean during the work hours that you can be a highly productive employee. Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what you are at that stage, right?
Yep.
You're learning all that vision and you're learning from others and all that. But what you're being paid for a service, let's bring it down to unhuman level, right? You're being paid for a service, and the more you can capture as you're rising up that ladder, the more abilities you're showing that you have those capabilities, because during those hours you're productive at this level.
Absolutely.
I don't think enough people think about their job in that way as well either, do they?
No, I don't think so. I think
hey, I go to work, I punch in.
Important. Like, how do you get the most out of your time doing the most valuable things? There's certain parts of your role that you have to do. But I will say, the one thing I think the mindset that really helped me in my senior level roles was focusing on the things that were both important and the things I could change, right? There are certain things about companies
you mean both at the same time?
Both at the same time, right? Like, there are things that are important, but you can't do anything about them, right? You feel very strongly they need to change, but at least where you are in your career at that moment, you can't do anything about them. And then there's lots of things you can do something about, but they're not that important, right? So focus on the things that you can do something about that are important. Those are the high impact things that you should spend your time doing when you're on your way to a senior level position or in a senior level position. I mean, when I first started in the C-suite role at my last company, there's all kinds of things I wanted to change that I believe very strongly should change, but I couldn't come in changing them all, and they wouldn't have taken me seriously if I did. So I focused on the things that I could change. They weren't as interested in systems and technology and things like that. And so those are things I started with that had a huge impact and that proved that I could make real positive change for the company. And then it led to tackling some of those bigger issues that I knew needed to be changed, but I couldn't change them immediately.
So you're creating a track record, opening the lane a little further on your journey of doing this. Okay,
and it can get very frustrating very quickly in a career when you do focus on the things that you can change. And by the way, in life too, right? People can't. So when you can focus on the things you can change and have a positive impact on, things look a lot better.
Why don't you read Thrive Time Show? This looks like a business podcast. Why don't you read what they say here?
Okay, great show. So much clarity already. Thank you for this conversation. Great. Love to hear that.
Thank you very much for that. So Anita here, what's the first sign that a leader has become their own bottleneck? We talked a lot about bottlenecks in the beginning. I do want to get into your consultation business as well, because I was reading through some of the terminology, and let me just ask you before you go into Anita here. The consultants that you're talking about, is your company creating consultants to go out into other people's businesses?
So that was my last company that I worked at. That I was a C-suite on. We did a lot of consulting for companies, but we also had our own consultants. So it was kind of part of the operation. We would work with a lot of.
So you had your own, and then like overflow would be like a contractor.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Yep.
And then now you're continuing that journey now by being that consultant.
Now I work with business owners to kind of like help them scale their business.
Because that's where I set up the whole damn show. And then while I was waiting for you, a couple things, and I went to your LinkedIn because that message came on, and I saw something there that I hadn't seen before of like 10,000 consultants. I'm going, okay, wait a minute. I hope I'm not walking into something totally missing the whole point.
Previous role. Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go on with Anita here. What's the first sign that a leader has become their own bottleneck? I can imagine, but these are always the hardest things. I built my machinery business up to about 35 people, and then we had contractors and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I look back. Hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Yeah.
I look back and see maybe there was some of those glass ceilings or those ceilings that I was putting up in my own business. But why don't you answer this? What would have been my first inclination? I built it over 30 years, so say 20 years ago, because there's different levels.
I think when all the decisions are running through you, that's a good sign, right? Like, especially, it's one thing when you're very, very small and you just start a business, all the decisions have to run through you, right? But as you get more and more employees, and this isn't just for owners, this is for any kind of leader, and you're still insisting that all the decisions run through you, I think that is a good sign that you're probably acting as a bottleneck. And I will say, as the bigger a company gets, the less likely you are the right person to make the decision, right? There's certain things you are really good at making a decision on, but there are things you just can't be the best at all things in your company.
You wouldn't have a very good company if you were, right?
No.
I got to imagine you got to be able to be better.
Yeah.
And have better people come on than you.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, and you touched on this a little bit in your intro, is if you're working harder and harder and longer, I think, and you're not necessarily seeing the results, I think that's a good sign that you might be a bottleneck, right? That you might need to think a little bit more about your systems so that you're not having to work harder and harder, especially if you're not seeing the payoff.
I should have done my life in reverse. I should have started the machinery business after I talked to these 500 different I get free advice. Now I get free advice about what was.
Right.
And all I can say is, yeah, no, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. But so I should have done the show first and then started the machinery business and gone into it knowing everything.
Yep.
I probably would have had more fun. I wouldn't have felt so stuck.
Yeah.
But so yeah, those are indications that that people who are in the position that need to talk to you need to be able to see.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of times it's the hardest thing. Oh, it's just easier if I do it myself. Now you're keeping it at that level instead of potentially, because your biggest thrust is start training leaders in your company.
Yes.
To take over those spots, right?
Yeah. And I think that, naturally in the beginning, there are things you're just going to be better at. I mean, part of the reason you have a business or successful business is because you're very good at whatever it is you're selling, right? And you got it to a point that you can hire people, which is very commendable because a lot of people don't. But then you need to train the next people. And sometimes those people are not going to be as good as you, definitely not at the beginning. But in order to grow and to look forward, you still need to be able to delegate to those people so you can drive growth, strategy, whatever it is you as a business owner need to be doing at that moment in time.
Let me expand on that a little bit, what you just said there, if I could. At some point, you're going to hire a operations manager, or you're going to hire an engineer.
Yep.
Or you're going to hire a bookkeeper. That one's a little more obvious to me. Because
yeah, no, everyone needs a bookkeeper, right?
Yeah, and that bookkeeper should never be me. So if I ever go and applying at your place of business as a bookkeeper, I'm telling you now, that's not my forte. I can make money. I just don't know how to spend it right. But when you're at that spot, you need to hire. And this was always something that was tough for me, because what do I know what makes a good engineer other than they can do the engineering stuff, or a good operations person other than they have the background that's better than my background at doing that. So I've got to a point now, I've got 30 people or whatever. So there's some operations that I can't attend to, especially if I'm better at sales or marketing and that stuff. That's my strength. So how do I know that I'm picking the right person? I mean, what am I talking to myself about, or what am I supposed to be looking for? Is it just go out and find somebody who's the opposite of you, but really good at that? I mean, what is it?
First off, I will say hiring people is hard. It's very hard. I mean, I've been doing it for over 20 years now. I still get it wrong sometimes.
Sure.
So I do think giving yourself grace when you did everything right. And I've also hired people that were terrible in interviews and amazing employees. So how you do an interview it's not always, means what, they're going to be a good or bad employee. I would say hire, again, it depends on the industry and what job you're hiring for, but I have found that you hire more for the attitude and the fit and less about the skills, and then teach them the skills. Of course, if they're a bookkeeper, you need them to have bookkeeping experience. I'm not saying that, right?
Right.
I do feel like if somebody is hardworking, has the right attitude, you can teach them the job. It's harder to teach someone how to work hard and have a good attitude. So if you feel like they're a good culture fit and a good personality fit, I have had more success with just training someone on the job. Now, part of it was because I had those experiences, so I could train them. So you need to have somebody who has that training experience. But I do think sometimes we underrate the attitude, the some of the things that are harder to see on a resume when we interview people. There's this one thing I coach folks on. It's called the Carnegie Triangle, but essentially the Carnegie Foundation years ago did this. Are you familiar with it?
Dale Carnegie, yeah,
very much so. He did this.
I was raised on that whole thing.
So he did this. They did this really study, and they studied all these successful leaders, and they found that like 85% of the attributes that made someone successful were their attitude, not their skills or their knowledge, but their attitude. So, I mean, it just shows you, how you, the way you show up every day, the attitude you have, the way you believe in yourself and in your employees goes a lot farther than the skills or knowledge I think you have.
That's an interesting point, because we talk also on the show, you've got vibes. There's currents that, we're humans, right? We have this vibe, right? And in that vibe, what you're sending off is what people are accepting, right? Or what they're receiving. So that vibe can either make a day better or worse for somebody. And then that person would want to follow you or go through the tough times, or know they can lean on you when they need that help without it being, with being able to talk openly and honestly. So I see that vibe. Now you're talking about, as far as building that longevity with people, you really have to have a team that meshes, that comes together, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, just to Dixon Road here.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one to me, and unless I'm reading this wrong, if I'm reading this a little bit off, but this is really that small, there's a $100,000 business, kind of a lifestyle business, and maybe $1 million, and then you get to 5 million, then you get into like 12, and now you're really starting to become a new organization, different level. So if you've got somebody who's got the right vibe, obviously they're going to have an easier way to work through this. But Dixon has thrown in this word rigid organization. So if I have responsibility, but not necessarily a matching title, and it's a rigid organization, and I don't know if that means something in this question, but how can somebody lead in that, or is it just you've got to be that ability, or you've got a spot that they can? What can you unpeel this a little bit for us here?
Yeah. So I think one is, again, kind of going back to like just being good at the job you're hired for, right? Sometimes we underestimate just doing a really good job at what you're hired for, delivering high quality work. I mean, I think sometimes, especially younger folks, tend to focus on quantity over quality, right? Like doing a really good job on what you got. And you get more responsibility, right? I mean, that in theory, that should be what happens. And oftentimes it does happen. I think asking for opportunities in those types of environments, whether it's through performance reviews, depending on the kind of relationship you have with your manager, like, asking them, are there things I can help you with? Are there things, and not necessarily asking for something to be removed from your plate, because I think in rigid organizations that doesn't normally happen. But what else can I do to help the mission? Is there opportunities in X, Y, and Z that I can help with? I'm really interested in more leadership opportunities. Are there any, are there any kinds of things I can do for you? And then at least it plants a seed with managers, though that's something you're interested in. And I mean, I know for me, when people expressed that they wanted to work on something new or that they wanted different growth opportunities, I would try really hard as a manager to get them something, because I think if you're a good manager, and I don't know if Dixon, you have a good manager or not, you shouldn't comment whether you do or don't, right? But you want to keep your employees happy. Especially my high performers, like I want to give them opportunities and keep them happy, even if the business at the moment doesn't have a place for them, to be promoted to yet. But I want to keep them happy with various experiences.
So that's part of becoming more, not accessible, but visible. So if you're at, obviously if you're trying to get things off your plate, that's kind of that's the opposite. It's visible for the wrong reason.
Right.
Unless you're just in a bad work environment. And Dixon, we don't know, that situation or anything. But at the end of the day, that visibility, basically, where we're driving into is you've got to be active in your own life.
Yeah.
You can't just show up and clock in, do a bunch of work, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but you got to bunch out, and then you go home and you complain to your spouse or your whoever friend about what a terrible day it's been all day long. That's the opposite of what we should be doing.
Yes, I agree. You have to find the positive in your role in your company. And sometimes, it's time to move on too, right? But at least make the most of the opportunity you have at that moment, before you find your next thing.
Let me ask you something. I'm curious about this now that I think about it. There was a time when you went to a job and you worked 40 years. And not that all of this is exactly the same. I'm broad brushing it. But there was a time where you went to your job for 45, 50 years. You got your retirement watch and you collected your pension. And that's been a business model for a long time. And then somewhere in here, there's been this kind of a change, probably in the 80s, 90s, maybe. I may not be 100% there. But then the way to progress in title, it was to go work here for 3 years, get that experience, and then somebody wants that you're kind of qualified for. But it was, you had to leave your job to grow in your title. And that may or may not be shifting back a little bit more now. But let me ask you, what is the best for you today? Somebody in their thinking, a 20-something coming in. This is not a question I think anybody's asking, but it made me think. Well, how going into it, your life's going to change, whatever. But going into it, your initial mindset. Do people, should they be going to try and get everything they can done out of that first, if they like it, if it's a good position and all the things are good, or are people's mindset more, and should they still be, you got to jump companies to do, or is it kind of,
I think it depends. Like, I think it goes back to that, like, are you learning and growing a lot in that role? Because I think in your 20s, you should really be focusing on how much you're gaining in terms of knowledge and experience. And, you need to be able to pay the bills and all those kinds of things. Yes. I'm not downplaying the financial part of it, but in your 20s, you're really setting like a foundation for yourself. And I think it's really important to think about, is this the opportunity that's helping me grow and learn a lot? And, a lot of people who graduate from college or high school or wherever they are, they start a job and think that's what they want to do. And then they realize, pretty early on, that's actually not what they want to do. And that's very normal. I thought I wanted to do research. I got in front of, realized I wasn't a great researcher. I didn't really enjoy it. And so I switched, and that's pretty normal too. But I still learned a lot from the experience.
That's interesting. So a lot of people do that. That's not uncommon.
Yeah, no, I think it's very common for, folks in their 20s, kind of like dating. You date all the wrong people. I think you also, I certainly did.
Kiss all the toads first.
Yeah, but you think you want to do something, and it changes when you start actually doing the job, right?
I wonder if that's what that comes from, because there's another part of our show that conversation would kind of lean into, and we won't get into it. But I wonder if that comes from people going out and getting the wrong education, or just people growing up a little bit more. You get out in the workforce and thought that was what this was, and you're like, oh, that wasn't quite what that I thought it was. So it's more that kind of case.
I think so. Yeah.
All right, let me add.
Go ahead.
No, you're the guest. Okay. You said that's the magical word for me to say, whoa.
I was just going to read this question. So what system should founders fix first when growth feels chaotic? So I think
we're on the same path.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
I think the I think the first thing is making sure you have the right people on the boat. Like, do you have people under you, good managers, who can help you get to the next level? I think that's part of the system, right? The other system is a feedback system. I think as you get bigger, you know less and less about what's working in your business and what's not. I mean, you know, in theory, what's working, like this thing we're selling or whatever it is not selling. But there's a lot of things that the employees know at your business or that their customers know that you might not be getting the information on. So some kind of feedback system is really important. I think for anyone, it's hard to get critical feedback. And so being open to feedback, having an environment where you're getting the feedback, whether you like it or not, because you are learning and hearing from your employees. And then I think technology systems can be really important depending on the business.
What kind of technology system? When you think of that?
For me, I would thinking like, CRMs, like Salesforce, things like that are tracking all your
Salesforce.
I love Salesforce. So like it's tracking all your data. So you're really getting a good sense of your analytics and what's working and what's not. So going kind of back to that feedback, I think that's an important system to have in place. I'm very much a strategic plan person. I think that's really important as well in terms of the systems you need.
What does that look like? What does that look like?
I think people think strategic plans are a lot more advanced than they need to be. I think it's like, here's the goals we want to accomplish, and it could be 3, right? In the next 3 years, we want to grow by this amount. We want to improve this product, and we want to have this kind of employee retention, and then here are the things we're going to do to get to those things. And again, it doesn't have to be this huge, robust, system where you're debating about every word but then you have a roadmap, and then getting back to that bottleneck, then you don't need your staff to constantly be coming to you and asking whether they should do this or not, because you already have this roadmap and guidance you've given them, and they can run with it.
Is it for Roy here? He loves the discussion so far. And what's the first step to building clarity? And we've kind of been talking about that. That's why I pulled this one up now.
Yeah.
Kind of been stepping back and forth over this line of clarity, because it goes back to what you're saying, having the right people on the team, so that you have that camaraderie, that whatever you want to say that, and then people are more open to talking to you. And what you just were talking about, you're now getting that information that you maybe weren't before. Is that what he's talking about? Clarity here? We're still floating right around the 400 people mark here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think having I always did staff surveys. I like staff surveys, anonymous staff surveys. I think, it's can be a punch in the face. I'll say that as a leader. But it's there, and some people there's always this one person that, you're not really sure where they're coming from. But then there are some trends, like several people made these same comments about X, Y, and Z. And so you start to think like, there might be something more there. I think so. That's part of it. Having some open and honest conversations, not just where you as the owner are getting feedback, but that you're giving feedback to the staff. I don't know.
Are you saying like in an open room, like, hey, we're going to have lunch today. We're going to have Chick-fil-A. Come on in and whatever. I don't have anything. By the way, but hold on. I should give a plug now. I'm sorry. The Mangum City Library is a sponsor of us, so they treat us very well, and you can see this is where we're going to have our teenagers come in for the Voices Around the Table, the Regeneration School project. Yeah. So anyway, go back. Another cheap plug there. So I had to throw that.
I think just having a culture where you can be honest about things. I think that
day in and day out.
Yeah, I work with very seasoned leaders who cannot give their employees feedback when they maybe, that was great, but when they're not doing well, you need to be able to say that to your employee, and you need to say it early, because when you say it early, and I don't mean be harsh, right? Like, hey,
Right.
next time do XYZ. You can course correct a lot through giving employees feedback early on. It gets a lot harder to get them to where they need to be when you're a year or two out, right? I even
So
when I
start early.
start early. I mean, you're like, think of yourself, I think, as an owner and a manager, wherever you are in the organization, think of yourself as a coach, right? Like, even the best athletes have coaches. Even the best athletes are coaching them on what they can do better next time.
Yeah.
And I even in an interview process will say, I'm the kind of leader and manager who gives people feedback. I just want to prepare that to you. Like, because I want you to be the best you can be. I want you to stay. I want you to be successful. And part of doing that is me giving you feedback. And I do think that when you start that culture of, and then being open and honest when someone gives you feedback, right? Like, I think that you can grow, both people in your organization and you as a leader can grow together, because none of us are strong at everything. None of us are perfect. We all need to get to the next level. We need to improve.
Let me ask you this. So many questions. It just keeps branching off. I'm sorry. I try to let you talk a little bit more because you got valuable information.
No, I love it.
But every comment is bringing up more curiosity.
Yep.
So how would that break down? So okay, it's easy if I've got 5 employees. You know, I can have that one-on-one. If I've got 10, 20, even 30 employees. But as you go further out, GM, for instance, or I don't know, I'll name a billion other huge companies.
Yeah.
They don't always talk to the president of the company doesn't always talk to every single employee, obviously. But how does that kind of break down? Are you then making sure you're responsible for let's say you're at a 300 shop. Every once in a while, you're going to have that bringing together people. We used to do that with the shop guys and the sales guys, because you're out playing golf together, or you're eating at a chicken restaurant thing and watching a ball game or whatever, just to keep that together. But when you get to a certain point, you can walk the factory floor every day, but if it's bigger than that, you've got more difficulty in achieving that. How does that break down? Or is this even a reasonable question to ask? Because it's such a wide range I'm talking. Where does it start to shift where you should be feeling like you should be in conversation with directly all of your people all the time? There's a point where that shifts where it's with your managers all the time?
I think so. I think, when you're getting above a certain amount of people to manage, for me, it was always honestly like 5. I managed a lot of people, in some way or another, but directly 5, 6, 7 people. Because after that, I think it gets really hard to give them the kind of time and attention.
There you go. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think then you have to, but that means if you're delegating a lot of management responsibilities, you need to make sure those people are good managers.
That they have
that is by far the best way you're going to retain talented people is by having good managers. People usually stay because they like their manager. That's, it's kind of interesting. And the work itself doesn't matter as much as like whether you like your boss and like the people you work with.
Even more than money, actually more than money. That's raised. That's higher on the level or the scale, whatever you want to call that, right? Yeah, I think we got Roy all handled there. I think basically it's like anything. You're building from the inside out. And that always starts with you. So why don't you read this? I haven't read this one. Sorry, I skipped over it. I was looking at
amazing insights, Cortney. This is hitting home for many of us. Thank you. And I like you spelt my name right. Most people put a U in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a U in my name. I don't know why my parents decided to put it without a U.
Well, that my parents gave me 2 Ds. So instead of Rodd, R-O-D, It's RODD.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
And then my middle initial is D. And then my last name is Duff. So when it's all just my name, RODDDDUFF. So my parents had a little fun with me too. So Richard here, how can middle managers protect their teams during constant change? This is something we talk a lot about on the show, is how the world is changing and things are changing. Is this the same answer where you're building that team tighter to begin with, or what advice do you have beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you can give them insight into the change, I mean, the worst thing I think for people is to feel like they don't know what's going on, right? Like even if there's layoffs or things like that, if it's all of a sudden being sprung on them, like you're being laid off today or something. I mean, there's no good way to deliver bad news, but there's better ways to deliver bad news. And I think that being open and honest with your team about changes that are coming helps them. And then I think feeling like you have their back. I think that's really important. I think I was able to retain a lot of really good people because they knew that I was in rooms fighting for them. I was protecting them. I was, I think, if they're poor performers, I'm not necessarily out there doing that, but like most of them were great performers. And I was there to make sure that people knew that and that they were getting the credit for that. And I think that, sometimes you can't protect your team from everything, but I think knowing they have someone in their court who they think is thinking about them during these changes is really important.
And sometimes, change is always stressful to some degree. Whether you're getting married, you're going on vacation.
Even positive change is stressful, right?
Even positive changes are stressful. And this question, as you were answering it, brought me back to when you were talking about building that company within a company, right? Yeah. So that was your last C-suite job, right? You were building a company within a company, and in doing that, it's a positive change. But your team, you kept informed, and maybe they probably even helped out in certain. They joined the team. To do that.
And I know this is a little outside of the middle manager point, but I think letting employees be part of the change is really important.
There you go.
Yeah, that's very important. Like people don't okay, like this change is happening and there's nothing you can do to control it, right? But people like to be part of a change. Like, give me your feedback. How about you take this part of it? I'll take this part of it. Like here's when this change is going to happen. This is what we're expecting, why we're doing it, and the positive results we're going to get, and communicating those things over and over again. I mean, as a company gets bigger, the change management is so important. I mean, I don't know how many times that I learned the hard way. You can't just roll out a change and then expect everyone to get on board because it's a good change and because they should trust you as a leader. Like, you need to be messaging that long time in advance if you can, and have a timeline and all kinds of things to make sure that people feel comfortable with the change. And they're never going to feel fully comfortable, but they will feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, and they'll make their work more proficient because they're not distracted on wonder what's going on with that, And like you said, they feel more there's more importance to their life when they're involved in what's happening around their life, right?
Yeah.
So let's move over here. I thought this is a really good question. I think I want to tweak it a little bit though.
Yeah.
Why does hard work stop being enough for career growth today? So I think it isn't just about today. How I want to tweak this a little bit is hard work. I don't think's always been enough. And why I'm saying that is I'm hanging that on one of your points, in that I think there's really a lot of this discussion evolves around being important enough to be seen or known at your company as you're going through the the scales and the steps of career advancement, but then also being seen by the people who work with you, that you're the one that is, trying to break up bottlenecks. You got to be seen on both sides. Being seen is kind of the whole center point to a homogeneous relationship between employers and employees, right?
I think that's right. And I think if I could unpack this question a little bit, is I think
Please.
what you're focusing your time on, right? Like you can be like the duck with the feet under it. You're like vigorously swimming, but not getting very far. I think
I just saw one of those yesterday. That's a really good example.
I think to be honest, I never worked more than 40, 50 hours a week in my career. Like I didn't. Like I had other things that I cared about. I have kids, I have a husband, I would just run myself into the ground if I worked more than that. But I very much focused on what were the high value things I could be spending my time. And I realized the more senior you get, the more luxury you have to do that, right? Because when you're lower in an organization, you kind of have to do certain things. But I do think even when you're in a more junior level position, there are things you could be spending your time on and things you can't. And like focusing on those high value things that are going to progress your career are really important, or that are going to move the needle in an organization.
Okay, my timing was really, really bad on that.
That's okay.
I'd be listening.
I just had an awkward pause. That's all.
I know. There's a TV show, late night TV show. He does these things with awkward pauses.
Oh,
his
you're
gig.
Testing me.
But I was throwing you an awkward pause there. So Paula here, what's the biggest mistake new leaders make when scaling teams? And I thought this was a really good question, because that's a hard thing to do, is to scale teams, especially when a company's growing at a pretty good clip and you're all kind of new at this, more or less. This is a great question I thought Paula had here.
I think hiring too many people too quickly. I think that's sometimes you can't do anything about that. But where I've seen companies fall down is they hire a lot of new leaders at the same time, and you're trying to train people all at the same time, and maybe you're hiring them too quickly. You're not doing enough vetting, and it just, you have a bunch of leaders who don't know what they're doing, who are trying to manage teams. I mean, managers are such an important part of the company. I mean, their DNA, is imprinted all over that company, and they make a huge impact on the people they manage. So I think making sure you have the right leaders in place and that they're trained well, even if it takes some time to do that.
Wow, I'm at a bad roll here. I'm on a bad roll. I hit the next question instead. I was ready for you. I was ready. I was there. Oh, by the way, in the opening video, I said, we'll get better at this. We'll get better quality. And I kind of made a joke out of it. Well, obviously we haven't got that much better yet, but we're trying to make it as aesthetically perfect as possible. So for Don here, how do you set this? I thought this was interesting, because I'm thinking Don, if you could clarify this, let me know. Oh, by the way, we're getting, we're already at an hour and 10 minutes.
Wow.
This just flown back. Don't forget to put your contact information in the thing there. But while you're doing that, how do you set boundaries without being seen as less committed? And my thought here is this, because it goes two ways, especially when you're a smaller company. You go from doing everything to now wanting them to do their own everything, but they're still coming back in. Now, I know that has to do with training. Okay. You've got to be able to train people and create learning experiences if they're still coming into you for the thing that they should be handling and still wanting your permission to do it. So I'm thinking that in what Don's talking about here, you've got to be open with everybody, and you've got to have that relationship and open discussions. But there's also got to be some boundaries to where you don't spend your whole day with people, the merry-go-round or whatever you want to
100.
call that,
Yep. And
right?
I think
So,
that's where the systems come into place. Like if you are having that
okay,
merry-go-round, that might be a
merry-go.
sign that you need better systems in place, because to me that sounds like there's some chaos happening, that there are a lot of people needing to ask you questions. I think this question really depends to me on like if you're coming from a manager perspective or if you're coming from more of an employee perspective. I mean, I think as a manager, it's
That's
really
where I was
important
taking it.
as a manager.
Take it from there.
I think it's really important to have boundaries for your people, because then they set boundaries for themselves. Like, I mean, I never responded to emails on the weekends unless it was, some really bad thing going down. And I never emailed my employees on the weekends. And they appreciated that I had boundaries, and I think it gave them room to have their own boundaries. I took a lot of vacation. I mean, I would take 20 days a year or so vacation, again, because I have 2 young kids and I want to have these great memories with them. And I think it encouraged other people to take vacations. And I think that when you take vacation, you're a happier, more productive employee, and you stay longer at a company. So I think those boundaries are important. I will say it's a lot easier to set boundaries in the beginning, right? So if you're starting a new job,
Right out of the gates, out of that.
If you're starting a new job, that's a good, it's harder to change them, but I'm not saying you can't, and you should if you don't have good boundaries. But when you're starting a new role, I mean, I would see, we served the companies I worked at, you serve these high paying clients, and you feel like I have to respond to them at 8 p.m. and I have to, and like, they don't know whether you're supposed to respond to them at 8 p.m. or not. So like start the relationship off by like, I'm going to respond to you at 9 a.m. the next morning when you email that. And they don't think anything of it. But if you're responding to them at 8 p.m. all the time, then they're going to expect that. So I think setting the boundaries early on is fine. And I think that, I had employees, like, again, I hardly ever emailed people after hours, but when I did, I knew there were employees who were not going to respond to me until the next day. And that did not bother me at all, because I knew that they had other things going on in their life. And I know not all managers are like that, but I do think that if you set those boundaries early on in all of your relationships, not just your professional ones, that it's a lot easier to do that.
I think I know the answer to this next question, or at least one of them. Thank you. That was perfect. One. I appreciate it, Don. Appreciate that. So this next one, what clarity tools do you personally use when everything feels urgent? I love this one.
That's a good question.
Life gets that way. It's a great question.
Yeah. And I'm somebody who thinks everything is urgent. So I sympathize with this. I think what's most important. So, I mean, one is like, is it something that needs to be done today? Like, absolutely has to be done today. Obviously prioritize that. But I think important is where, like, how important is that activity towards the goal? I think that's what you prioritize. I'm a big fan of the Stephen Covey 4-quadrant model. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but essentially a lot of us tend to like focus on the things that are urgent right now, and we tend to.
I'm not familiar with that.
Well, oh, you're not? Okay, there's 4 quadrants. There's things that are important and urgent, things that are important and not urgent, and then there's a bunch of things that are urgent and not important, right? Or not important and not urgent. So if you think about it in the 4 quadrants, as you progress in your career, you want to be focusing on the important. And honestly, where you really want to be prioritizing as you become more senior is the not urgent but important category, because that is the strategy, right? Like, it's not urgent to develop your team, but it's incredibly important for the long-term success of your company. It's not urgent to do business development or sales on this day, but it's incredibly important for the long-term success of your company. And it's easy to, because they're not urgent, it's easy to deprioritize them. So what I do when I work with owners and leaders is I say, like, what things do you wish you spent more time on, right? A lot of it's strategy, a lot of it's sales. And like actually time blocking, like on Fridays from 9 to 11, no matter what, I am doing this thing and I'm not changing it. And then you really start to see the needle move on all of these things that become urgent. Here's an example of something that's important and urgent. You have to fire a low performing employee, right? But if you spend time on the development side, then you have less of the urgent stuff to deal with. So getting yourself into that quadrant of important but not urgent work is very important. Sounded very technical, by the way, but I hope that makes sense.
No, it made perfect sense, because specifically for one thing that you said many good, wonderful things, but what you said was that's where the strategy is.
Yes.
When it's important but not urgent. The important and urgent is that you got to take care of.
Yeah.
But strategy is taking care of things that will
so you don't have those fires, right? Yeah, and that's where as a leader you want to spend more and more of your time. Is the strategy and the forward thinking in your business, not doing the day-to-day work. You want to be looking forward in your business, and hire, if you can, the people to do the day-to-day and looking back at the business.
It's interesting what the words that you're using there, looking back at the business, the day-to-day or the strategy. And you want to be, as the leader of that organization, you want to be in the strategy.
Yeah,
the strategy
you can. You don't have the luxury, but most leaders need to spend a little bit more time on the strategy. In my experience.
Before I go into this next one, which I know you're going to love this question. But no, it's a good one. But that's all correct, right? That's your email address. That's how you want to be.
I'll put my website in here too.
All right. And also, while you're putting your website in there, can you also tell me what your consulting business looks like at this moment?
Yeah.
Like, do you have 10 million people lined up at the door and you spend 3 seconds with everybody and bill them from the, or what does it look like? Are you,
I wish I had 10 million people lined up at the door.
Me too.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question. So I tend to work with small and mid-sized business owners, and I'm helping them scale. And I do one-to-one coaching.
What size?
Anywhere I would say from 5 million to 40 million. But I just signed a very, very small business in the last few days too. So I work with very small businesses too.
And that matters on what they're wanting to do or what they're scaling up to do. What is that vision? Oh, okay, I'm a $1 million business, but this is what's going to be happening and I need to scale to, next step 5 or 12 or whatever that is. So it depends on what the company's all about as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I work one-on-one. I have a whole program depending on the need, and we work one-to-one. Typically we meet once a week. And there's things for me to work on and things for the owner or leader to work on. And the engagements can last a short time, a few months, and some engagements can last forever. Because I kind of partner and help the leader grow and be better.
It depends on what the optimum goal is as far as where they're going, as far as what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes they want to grow their revenue. Sometimes they want to get home at 6 o'clock to have dinner with their kids, and the goals can be different.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Okay, before I get to this next question, people are hanging out here, man. This is crazy. Hour and 20 minutes now. So that's your website, correct?
Yep,
Is
that's my
is that
website. Now I
correct?
can put my LinkedIn handle in here too.
All right, I'll put that on while you're when you put that on. I'm going to read this from Discovery. Oh wow, I remember this name because it's such a weird name. Somebody's at work right now, obviously. Discover Connecticut. These are people typically that are bringing business into, right? I mean, Discover Illinois, Discover Texas. You go to trade shows and, these booths are there trying to bring business in. So good question. I like this. This topic matters so much. Thank you. What advice would you give to women aiming for the C-suite in high pressure environments today? Obviously, there's a lot to consider. What would you offer that initial advice?
I think, one of the advice I got early on when I first started in the C-suite from another female leader who was much more seasoned at a different company, she told me to envision myself as a brick wall. I always remember this, which essentially she's saying, like, be unflappable. And I think as a woman, that's even more important. I think, and people can disagree with me, but I do think if you have big emotions and big reactions, people see it differently than if as a female than a male. And so she really focused on saying, like, people are going to come at you. And they do. I mean, when you're in the C-suite, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's like, and
big numbers.
I mean, and if they're mad or if they're, I mean, it's all coming to you, and you have to really, like, be unflappable. You have to, like, calm them down. But you have to kind of stay unemotional too, I think. I mean, it's honestly, it's not much different than raising kids. I mean, if your kid comes to you and they're, like, throwing a fit, I mean, the worst thing you can do is, like, get upset or get mad. I mean, if you want to calm them down, like, you need to be a sounding board. You need to be calm when they're not, right? They're coming to you to calm the storm. And I think as a woman, that's particularly important. I think I was able to advance in my career because I was always seen as calm and level-headed and rational. And I wasn't always that way, believe me. But I think that's something that all leaders have to get to if they want to make it in the big leagues, is to just not react in the moment. You have to stay calm. You have to process things, and then you have to think things through once you're calm, and not let people get the best of you.
You have to have a certain personality. I mean, it's like you were saying earlier, your dad was a lawyer, and then he became a business owner. Well, people become lawyers because they have that they become policemen or women because they have that in them, or they become just a really happy factory worker that didn't have a whole lot of responsibility. They dig their life, they get home and they do whatever. And then you have the people that are, hey, I'm going to go out and build a business. You got to make sure you're in the lane you want to be in, because it's great life. Obviously, you talked about your lifestyle is very good. That comes with rewards because you're moving big numbers. As a general
high
rule.
Stakes. It is.
But say that again.
It's a high stakes. I mean, you get, when I were in those positions, I made very good salary, but it was also very stressful. It's why I ended up leaving eventually. And I'm not saying, good for the people who stay in that role forever. And I could have, and hopefully if I ever want to go back, I will. But that's why I started my own business, because I think at some point, I needed more balance back, and so much of what I enjoyed in the C-suite was helping people achieve their goals and watching people succeed and grow professionally and helping fix problems. And now I can do that, on the outside, not everyone relying on me.
Yes, exactly. You can
I just got to a point where I was responsible for so many things. It was hard to sleep at night, to be honest. And I loved it. Fine. And I'm glad that I did it. And I have so many experiences to share and help folks, but at some point I decided I was ready for a change. But that goes back to my advice. Like sometimes you got to change,
Yeah. And and the beauty of being where you are and kind of work this into a closing. Hey, everybody,
Oh yeah.
thank you for being here and so forth. Closing statement you want everybody to leave everybody with. But what again, you've been able to design your life because you started off.
You're right.
You started this path off and you were looking to be curious. You were looking to be able to gain all this needed, because it brought you back to where now you're training C-suite people, or maybe not even C-suite, but other you're training management people how to not only manage their teams but manage their own life and not get lost in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've worked and I still do, but I worked really hard. I tried all kinds of things. I always have been a learner. It's why I like doing the job now, because I'm constantly learning about other businesses and people and their lives. That's you too. And I also was very conservative with money. My husband and I, and I'm not preaching, this is not a soapbox, but we've always been very conservative with the way we spend things. And so when it was time for me to leave and all of a sudden it became apparent that it was time, there's something that clicked and I was like, you know what, this isn't working anymore. I was able to leave and choose something differently. And I'm not, at least for now, I'm not making the kind of money I was, but I'm happier and I'm sleeping well at night and I'm spending more time with my kids and it's fulfilling. And, so it's like, sometimes you got to pivot, and I pivoted, and you got to figure that out for yourself.
It's beautiful. Great words. I appreciate it. Great show, as I expected it to be.
And you're a wonderful host. I loved it. You got me talking about all kinds of things.
You. Good. That's kind of like what we like to get into, and I think it gives people a fuller picture and a ways to be Keep right?
Yes, I appreciate that.
Give everybody a big wave. I'll see you in the green
room. I really appreciate it.
Keep your hands off the green peanuts, okay? I saw you leaning in earlier, so. It was a great show, folks. I loved it, and I appreciate all your guys' comments. And Cortney, I've got your correct information here. I've got your coaching website. I've got your email here, and I've got your LinkedIn. So we've got a nice following on LinkedIn. You can actually, if you jump over onto LinkedIn real quick, you could see us still streaming live there. It always goes a little bit longer than the show itself does. But that was a beautiful, beautiful episode. Cortney, I appreciate all your experience and your indicators. And what people can design and make their own life out of. We've all gone through burnout, and burnout, as I said in the opening, is it's become commonplace now. You don't have to do that, but what you do have to do is you do have to build everything from the inside out. That includes your own career, that includes your own person, that includes you being a better mate. Everything we talk about in the show it's hold on, let me back up. It's stunning to me that everything we talk about on this show, which is basically everything to do that impacts or empowers the great middle class, every single subject comes back to from the inside out. That means your own person, your own partnership, your own spouse, not your kids. Your kids, you got to work from them from the outside right away. And so they start working themselves from the inside out. But you got to give them tools. And, that's why these conversations are so important, because it reminds me, and it blows me away. I tell people, we're at 500 shows. So I've gotten 500 plus hours over the last year and a half now of great advice from experts. But each time it really does. It comes back to saying you've got to be part of your life, folks. you've got to build yourself from the inside out. You've got to build that. If the first marriage wasn't there, the second, your next stage in life, your next career, your friends, you've got to be involved in your life. And today we're talking about owners of companies and people scaling businesses up, or being the next up and coming career bound individual in the workforce, or that small business that wants to scale up to the next level. But each of those messages, each of those stories are about one thing. If you build from the inside out, you're gonna have a pretty damn good life. And but we need to be active in it. And so stay at the end. I always try and do some goofy thing at the outro, after the outro video. Say hi to Barbie, everybody, and go out and say hi to somebody today. Wave at somebody. Let's keep this momentum moving forward. Let's keep this conversation one at a time happening every day. And it's important because there is, I believe, a utopia coming, and that utopia can be our utopia, or if we don't have our politicians, and if we don't have a number of things in line, that utopia is not going to be for us. It's going to happen. The cost of goods and services are coming down dramatically. There's going to be a point in time where you don't have to work, but then will the government see you as a burden? So again, we've got to build ourselves from the inside out. We need to build this community. We need the great middle class to become the giant once again that moves structures and moves mountains, and just moves entire nations to getting back to where we really belong. And what is that? That is on Insights and Straight Talk with me, myself, and I. Oh my God, I'm kind of burned out today. And so for that, watch on the other side of the outro video, but I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here, and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Design your life, guys.